rock and roll. That's how I usually do it. No fancy intros. Chair, all right. It's not the snap chair, is it? It is, isn't it? It's the snap chair. Do you want to switch it for that one? Oh, the two of them. Look, they've snapped. Some big people been sitting on them.
Big Paul.
Yeah, just switch those over, mate, and then just drop those. Ooh. There we go. Camera's on. There we go, we're in. And here's the water as well. Mate, just drop it there, thanks.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's rock and roll, brother.
Let's go.
Mate, speaking about addiction, here's mine right here.
Off coffee.
Caffeine, tea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Caffeine,
I'm not that hard down the line. Soft drugs.
I'm terrible. I am. I didn't have caffeine for about, I don't know, probably a year and a half, something like that. It was giving me anxiety.
What, too much caffeine?
Yeah. And then I packed it in for about a year and a half. And then my dad passed away and I was just flat out on it again. But it just speeds everything up, I think.
Yeah, that's why I like it, mate.
Yeah, it's great in the morning.
That's why I like
Pulls
it.
in there.
Do you want your chair up, by the way? I feel like a fucking giant.
Yeah, I feel like a proper midget.
Yeah, there's a little handle underneath. If you just prop that up, that's it. There you go. There you go. That's better, isn't it?
Yeah, loads
One plus that. Yeah, so that's mine. So I watched a documentary the other night, produced by a good friend of mine, Stephen Reynolds.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is. And yeah, starring yours truly, mate. And it was 50 minutes long. Sat there on a Saturday night with my notepad and pen. And yeah, I was pretty blown away, if I'm honest. Because I knew who you were, of course. You know, I see you around the gym and, you know, you're in the mix of that red corner circle, right? So I kind of knew. And I knew that you had your previous battles and troubles. I'm sure you still have some in your life now, which we'll talk about. But I knew you had battles with booze. I knew about the drugs too, but I don't think I knew to the extent that it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked actually at some of the stories.
Yeah.
Inspired, by the way.
Yeah.
Totally inspired. But most people listening to this podcast won't have seen the documentary. It's called Who Am I?
Yep.
It's on YouTube, right? So you can go and watch it.
Yep.
But it's kind of what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Your story and your journey.
Yeah.
It's been pretty epic.
It's been...
Just come right to that, mate. Just pull your chair right in. Sorry, I'm going to keep nagging. I don't want to miss any of this.
It's been like... it's been mad. It's been happy. Disappointing.
Talking about life in general.
Overwhelming. Just the whole addiction thing. You know, like going from like being in such a mad place where I honestly thought that I was never ever going to get out of that. I really honestly did. And it got that bad. If you watch the documentary, you'll see I was really suicidal, bad, like really bad, to the point where I honestly believed 100% that there was no point in me being here. No point whatsoever. And I really believed that. And to be in that position and to have them thoughts in your life is a very, very dark place. And I tried the suicide thing quite a few times. I had my own special tree where I was going to hang myself. I've cut myself over 100 times. I was going to stab myself, overdosing. I've had shotguns in my mouth. Well, a shotgun, not shotguns. Sounds a bit dramatic then, but yeah, I've done loads, and it's very dark, and it's very, very. I can talk about it a lot, you know. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it doesn't bother me, but I like talking about it because I know that it can help other people. And for me to be able to do that, I know that that's quite powerful. And using it in the right way, like being here today, that maybe whatever I say today can probably help somebody. And I know that I can, because I've had quite a lot of people reach out to me that I don't even know. That people that have got like single parents where they've got problems with their kids, they're on drugs, knocking about the wrong crowd. people saying, you know, you should be in schools, you should be touring with your documentary, going into schools, you know, all sorts of things. But I'm no different to anybody else. You know, as a person, I'm just a human being that I refused, in the end, I refused to give in because I was desperate to see what was on the other side. Because I used to look around, I was so like ill with depression, and with everything else that was going on in my mind, I looked around, I could see other people that were happy, and I thought, well, surely there's got to be some of that out there for me. And I was desperate to see what was on that side. And then it got to a point where I really tried to kill myself one day. And it's probably the funniest story you probably hear about ending your life, but I can laugh about it now, but it could have been so much of a different story, because one day I broke, and I just completely broke. And I was with a girl at the time, and I collapsed. I was in the spare room, and I broke. I was on my hands and knees, begging for her to take it away from me, because I couldn't handle it anymore. And there was a big jar of pills on the side, and I got the jar. I opened the jar up, and I was pouring them into my hands, and I was eating them like sweets. She was crying, thinking I'm going to do something. You know, she's frightened and all that sort of stuff. I was never violent, but I just weren't in a very good place. And then the next thing you know, she stopped all that, you know, took the pills off me and everything else. And obviously you've watched the documentary, and the pills were calms, like a medical, what do you call it, herbal medicine to make you like calm down and sort of thing. And we really laugh about that now, because it is quite a funny story, but it could have been so much different, you know. And from that day, I went to a couple of AA meetings with Alcohol Anonymous. I didn't get on with that. For me personally, I know it helps millions of other people, but for me, it just didn't. I only went to about 5 or 6 meetings, and then I sort of did everything myself with the help of a lot of other people around me, like Tony Summers and Jeff.
Yeah, we'll talk about
and
that,
all that,
sure.
all them sort of things, all them sort of people. But I knew, and I really knew without anybody having to tell me, that I'd got 2 choices. I was going to die.
Bring that chair in a bit, Baz.
I was going to die, or I could have another crack at it and see what's on the other side and really go for it. And that's what I did, because I didn't want to die. You know, the thought of my parents and my sister finding out that I've killed myself, I couldn't handle that. You know, so like I thought, you know what, no matter what comes my way, don't matter what it is, I'm never ever going to give in, ever. And I didn't.
I know a few people that have said the exact same thing. Like Paul Mort was one of the guys that I knew. James Boardman last week. He's like, they come close, but at the last minute, it's like their kids jump in their way in mind's eye, you know, and they say, you can't, because we're going to be the kids that have got no dad.
Yep.
We're going to be the kids that, you know, had a dad who killed him. So there's always something that saves them at the end, and that's interesting. But what struck me was like hearing about your childhood. I was like, Baz didn't even have a chance. That's what jumped out at me. I was like, I would be an alcoholic too if I had the same situation and upbringing. Yeah. And I think there's often people skip that part. They skip the empathy part, and they just look at the state the man's in when he's at his worst, and they don't trace it back, do they? Yeah. They don't look and go, well, what's he been through to make him want to erase all that pain? Yeah. And not enough people do that. Yeah. And that struck me. I was like, fucking hell.
Yeah. It's mad because for the people that don't know, my dad was a drug dealer, and he wasn't Pablo Escobar. You know, he hadn't got needles hanging out his arm, and my dad liked to smoke. He liked to smoke a lot of cannabis, and he did that from a very early age. I think he was about 17. Then he got into selling it. So we grew up with it in my house. My mum hated it. But I think my mum didn't really want a broken family, so she sort of put up with things, you know. But my dad didn't beat us or anything like that. He was hard to get on with. Our relationship was like, he struggled to have a relationship with his own kids. He could get on well with other people, but with his own kids, he just struggled with that. But he wasn't horrible to us. We never really went without things. We went places, we didn't really go. I think we went on one family holiday, but I grew up with smoking cannabis was a normal thing. And when I was about 12 and a half, I tried my first spliff because I was knocking around with the big kids thinking I was dead cool. And then my dad found out he knew that I was going to local drug dealers' houses and buying cannabis, stuff like that. And then he pulled me over one day and he said, listen, he says, I know you're starting to have a bit of a smoke. He says, I want you to come and get it off me. And you think, your dad's saying that to you. But I got it because he didn't want me to get caught by the police.
Yeah.
Because the police are always watching drug dealers' houses and things like that. He didn't want me to get into any trouble. So I used to get all my cannabis off my dad. And then it got to a point where we always had a snooker table in the house or a pool table. And my friends were allowed to come around my house and have a smoke and play pool all night and listen to, because we was really into the rave scene. We used to go to the Eclipse. We was only kids. We were only 16, 17. We used to go to all these raves and things like that. So we was in that era of the drug scene, and it was brilliant. Even though drugs destroyed my life up to a point, but I did have some really good times as well as the bad times. I'm not going to say it was all bad because it wasn't. So. But all my mates used to come around my house and have a smoke, and they used to think it was the most amazing thing because my dad would come in and would have a game of pool, and my dad would have a smoke with us. My mum would make us something to eat, and it was just normal. And all my mates thought I was the coolest kid in school, And for me, because I was only like a teenager, it was a great feeling, But then when I was 17, we got made redundant from. My dad was a slaughterman. And we got made redundant from the slaughterhouse. And I think I got about 600 quid, 700 quid, something like that, redundancy. And I thought I was loaded. So can you remember the hi-fi separates you used to buy? The tape deck, the amp, the tuner, and all that sort of thing. There was a Technics double tape deck I'd seen in this shop, and it was on for sale. And he took me down to go and get it. And we come back, we were setting it all up. And then he got this wrap out of his pocket, started chopping these lines up. And I knew what it was, but I'd never done it before. And he showed me how to do it. And he's like, right, you get the straw and you close one nostril and you do this and you do that. And I knew it was really wrong.
You're talking about cocaine, right?
Yeah, cocaine, yeah. So it's my first line of coke. I was 17 and my dad's giving me my first line of coke. And I knew it was really wrong. But I liked it because I knew it was wrong because it was that sort of bad boy thing. And it was like I knew that's what the grown-ups did in my dad's bubble, in my dad's circle. Not any normal grown-ups don't do it. It's just that in my dad's circle, it was pretty sort of cool because none of the other kids were doing it either, So we had my first line, and then like on Wednesdays we used to go out, and my dad used to do his little dealings and things like that, and he used to get the lines out then, And I knew it was really wrong, and then I didn't do it for a really long time, and then I got into boxing and things like that. So, but it was just I knew it was wrong.
What do you think your dad gave you your first line of cocaine?
Do you know what? I really have not got a clue. I really have not got a clue.
Have you spent much time like reflecting on those decisions that he made, and maybe how his upbringing might have affected like him too?
Yeah, I mean, my dad had quite a rough upbringing as well. So my mum told me, his mum and dad were just like, he'd come in from school, and they'd send him straight to bed, and he hadn't done anything wrong. If he made a noise when he was eating his food, he got belted, things like that. And I think like he didn't really have a relationship with his dad either. I think his dad went to watch him play football once, and that was the only thing he ever had to do with him. So maybe it was that. Well,
certainly, mate. That's what I mean about the tracing it back. Like people will hear that, his dad gave him his first line. That's fucking terrible. And yeah, it is. But I still think it's worth spending a bit of time reflecting and looking at people's upbringing. He might have been taught no better, and how he brought you up might have been better than his upbringing. So logically, I can see how he thinks he's doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is how we create generational change. I don't know what you think, but like you've worked so hard to develop and improve yourself, right? You're a better man now than what you were 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to have kids or the people that you come into contact with and mentor, hopefully you're going to be a positive influence.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what happens. I just think through generations we try and become a little bit progressively better.
Yeah.
But no one's fucking perfect. Everyone's got demons. Everyone's got shit, just to different degrees. But it's understandable when you see what people have been through as a kid.
Yeah, I think my dad struggled sort of socially with certain things. He found it hard to communicate with like other blokes. My mum used to say that your dad he struggles with that, and I know that he struggled to communicate with his own kids. I mean, we used to talk here and there, but when it come to me and my sister, he really struggled with it.
Do you think it was his way of bonding, perhaps? You know, some dads take their kids fishing. Your dad might have gone, do you know what? Well, let's do some drugs together. Like you would go out for a few pints with your dad.
Yeah, well, we did that. See, my dad was a poacher as well. So, like, we went... my dad used to go rabbiting, he used to go trout fishing, all illegally, obviously.
Expect nothing else, mate.
No, but like he took me fishing. We used to go pigeon shooting. Stuck in a bush all day, freezing, shooting nothing. But we did all that. We did all the stuff, and but it was just drugs was just a really big thing. And then he packed it in. I think he still did coke, but he packed in smoking dope for years and years. Then he packed in the fags because he was a big smoker. My dad was. He smuggled drugs back from Morocco as well. When it was the maddest story. He swallowed 500 grams of oil in condoms and brought them back from Morocco. And but to me, when I found out about this, because I was still in that circle, I thought that was the coolest thing. And he was telling me that when they went to Morocco, you got to think like I'm only a teenager here. My dad's and I'm into the rave scene, and I'm into the smoking and sniffing, and then you got your dad like doing these things. And he said to me, he says, when they went to Morocco, he says they've got these like windy roads going up into the mountains, and they'd organised to go and buy some cannabis, obviously loads of it, off these guys that lived in the mountains or wherever they were, these drug dealers, and they got a car and they was going through the mountains. He says, but you don't understand, he says, because the mountains were like only wide enough for like 1.5 cars sort of thing to pass each other. Was pretty scary, because if you look down the side, there was like a 300-foot drop. He says, and you could see cars down the bottom that had gone over, that had like burnt out, and he says, and there was these other drug dealers that lived at the bottom of the mountains that were saying, no, come buy stuff off us. And my dad was like, no, we can't, because we've already arranged to go and buy it off these other guys. So these guys followed them up the mountains and were trying to ram them off the road. And my dad was saying, it's just nuts. He says, because you look down and you can see this 300-foot drop, and you've got these guys behind them trying to get them to go off the road because they wouldn't buy cannabis off them. And it was just like some off a film. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, wow. Do you know what I mean? But it's but just little things like that. When I was a kid, I just thought that was incredible.
Well, it's weird you say it, because like one of my favourite shows is Narcos. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix.
I've seen it, yeah.
It's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the actual enjoyment and pleasure I get out of watching these drug dealers, like with the logistics, and it's like, I don't know, there's something in there, the entrepreneurial skill set of them as well. And like you say, just doing things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I think within every man there's a little bit of a rebellious side.
Yeah.
And, the status that it comes with as well.
Yeah.
We could pretend we don't want that. Status is not a bad thing all the time, you know?
I think as well, because like, a lot of my dad's friends, like some of them had got a bit, like, reputations and stuff around the town and things like that. And because my dad sort of knocked around with guys with that bit of reputation and stuff, I just thought it was dead cool.
Where was this? Were you born and bred in Cov?
No, in Nuneaton. And it was mad because like when I was growing up, our house there'd be people in our house all the time because they'd be coming around to buy dope off my dad. And there was always great to us. I was never in any danger or anything like that. There was nothing but really good to us, if anything. Whoever come round. But there was always people that come round the house, constantly. And then we got busted.
I know, that story when you got raided when you were a kid.
I can't remember that though. That's what Mum was telling me. But Steve Reynolds was telling me, he says he's put that into one of his films. I don't think he's going to use it, but he said he's going to put that into his film. I was buzzing with that, but but that was mad. But like my mum said, my dad was out. Police were coming around the front door, and then they was coming around the entry. My sister was in a cot upstairs, and they was trying to find whatever they was looking for. My mum said they found some, but there's only a tiny little bit, and that's after a big bit. And my mum used to buy me like a toy or something more or less every week from this little market stall in Nuneaton town. It's called the Indoor Market. It's not there no more. And she got me this bow and arrow set, and you got the arrows with the suckers on the end. And apparently she was saying that I was shooting the coppers, and I was going, "Get out my house, get out my house!" I'm shooting the coppers with this bow and arrow, sort of thing. Like, but I mean, it's funny when you look at it. But like, my mum hated it. You know, she didn't want to live like that. But it was just the way my dad was. You know, so.
Yeah, and I guess she saw you going down the same path, right? Like with the booze and the drugs. So where did that take you then? Like, so you know, you're this 17-year-old lad who's just tried his first line of coke with his dad. Like, what do the next 5 years look like for you?
You see, it's hard. It's hard sometimes because I lost a lot of. I can't remember everything because I was in so much of a state sometimes. Quite a lot of the time, it's hard to piece everything together. So I have to really sort of sit down and think, about what was going on through timelines and things like that. Because when you're a drinker, you know, you can't remember everything. Because the only time I weren't drinking was when I was asleep or when I was at work. You know, so I'd wake up drinking. I'd come home from work and I'd always make sure I'd got drink when I got home. So like piecing things together is a bit hard, but I think I did coke for a bit with my dad, smoking and stuff like that. And then I think when I was about 20, my 21st birthday was coming up, and I packed in smoking then. And then I didn't do coke, and I started boxing over Atherstone, and I was so fit, mate. Honestly, I didn't smoke dope anymore. I hardly drank at all, and I was so fit. I used to run about 4 miles to the gym, then we'd run about 5 or 6 laps around Atherstone town, then we'd do the actual warm-up in the boxing class, and then do the session, pads, sparring, whatever we'd do, and then I'd run back home 4 miles. But no problem. I wasn't having out of breath. I was so fit, so fit. And I loved it. I felt so good. And then I had one amateur fight, won that. Thought I'd won the world title. That was the best feeling. And then I got a job at an engineering company, and I knew the guy that owned it. He's passed away now. He promised me the earth. He was going to get me. It was like an apprenticeship, but at my age, it was unheard of to get an apprenticeship at my age. And then I was getting bullied there. Not physically, but by one of the managers there, and it got quite bad. And what I was doing was, I was only working 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but working nights. But when I'd come home, I would wait for the pub to open up, which was literally around the corner. And then I just started having a drink then, and then the bullying got worse, and then I just started drinking a bit more and a bit more. But then I'd pack my boxing in, so then I weren't nowhere near as fit. My mind weren't as sharp, and then. It just sort of went from there. And they always say that drink really creeps up on you, you know, because there was a couple of guys that round by where I live that I sort of grew up with a little bit, sort of knew who they were, really sound guys. They were sort of like the local drunks that everybody knew. And I used to look at them and I used to think, Jesus Christ, there's no way I'm going to end up look like that, you know. And in the end, I was worse, you know, and it was really bad. I was drinking so bad, so bad. But then I'd get up in the morning, and I don't know whether because I know you're really into your fitness and that, but when you've had too much to drink, I don't know whether you've had the shakes in the morning, but when people get like the DTs, whatever you want to call it, and you're shaking so bad, some people just lie on the settee all day, put the TV on, eat junk food, feel sorry for themselves. I can't do that. I have to drink again, because I have to have it to balance me back up, because I'm really paranoid. I can't look anybody in the eye. I'm shaking so bad. And even though I don't want to drink again, I have to balance me back up. But then when I feel all right again, I just go back on it. And then it's just like a big circle.
The way you talk about booze in the documentary, I think you refer to it even being like the most addictive drug for you. So out of all the things you've done, you were like, booze was the one.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's the one that you got in debt for the most.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and coke, because I was spending too much money. But I think it was around about 25 grand in debt. I got myself in trouble with, and that's, I don't know if you've had money worries, but having money worries is horrific for your mental health. It is horrible because you can't pay it, but I need a drink. So what you do is, well, what I did is you organise your bills to like military precision. So you can't mess about with the council tax because you know they're going to fine you. You know that you've got to pay this guy because he'll be on your case. You'll be able to get away with owing Steve down the road 40 quid because he's all right and he's got a few quid, so he probably won't miss it. And you get to know all these little things. And even though I was that much in debt, I still needed to drink because drink will always come first. That's why you always see like desperate people do desperate things, and there was nothing going to stop me from getting another drink. Nothing. And nothing never did. Even if I had to borrow the money. That's why you see people begging on the streets because they're desperate for it. You know, when you see people prostitute themselves, things like that, they wouldn't really want to do that, would they? It's because they're in a desperate, horrible hole and they can't see a way out. So they're doing what they think they need to do, even though they know it's wrong. And it's a horrible place to be in. But to have that much debt over your head, knowing that you can't pay it back, but you still have to drink and spending money that you shouldn't be spending, it's like the noose just gets tighter, you know. So and having the paranoia from the drugs, having the anxiety from the drugs, and then having the anxiety of money worry and can't sleep and all that all mixed into one it literally drives you mad because you can't see a way out because it's just the way it is. It's horrible.
Are your empathy levels up there then for people that find themselves in like just difficult positions like that? Do you empathise, or does a part of you think, come on, you can fucking change?
Yeah, I think because I've been there's people out there that have been in a hell of a lot worse situations than me. I don't think that my problems and my story is the worst because I know full well that it's not, because there's people out there that make my story look completely tame. But like when it comes to like, say for argument's sake, when you see people on the streets, oh, don't give them money, you know, and they're very judgy, you know, and they'll just go and spend it on drugs, you know, but you don't know their story. You know, I'm a sucker for giving homeless people money, you know, and I gave a guy, there's a young guy I seen once outside Greg's, and he didn't look that old either, and he looked like early 20s, and he looked filthy, Alex, like proper, like he'd been down the chimney. And I was in Waterstones, and I was upstairs in Waterstones in the neat, and I looked out and I could see him from the top window, and I thought, do you know what? And I was looking for books to buy him a book, so I bought him The Alchemist. And I went over. I didn't know whether he could read or write. I didn't want to ask him because I didn't want to embarrass him. And I wrapped it up in the carrier bag that they give you, the Waterstones carrier bag, the little one. And I said, "How you doing, mate? You okay?" I said, "I've just got you this." I didn't tell him what it was. I just left it wrapped up. I said, "I've got you this. Have a good day." And then I just left him, like, and I always quite think about it a lot, you know, thinking, I wonder if like that helped, you know, but you just don't know people's stories.
Here's my view on it, mate, with giving money to people who are sleeping on the streets. It's none of your business what they do with it if you're going to give them money. Like, if you want them to spend it on food, go and buy some food, which is what I'll do, or coffee. But if you're going to give them money, like, you just have to just give them the money and then let them do what they choose with it. Yeah. I've got no problem. There's a guy that I got to know called Marcus who sleeps rough, and I used to help him out a little bit occasionally. And do you know what? I didn't care if he spent it on booze or drugs. I was like, because he was quite an old guy. I don't think he was going to change.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who the fuck am I to say? But you can't spend that on booze, Mark. Because I know he's going to.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, do you know what?
Do you know what? A lot of them as well, when it comes to the alcohol thing, I mean, I don't know whether people know this or not, but when it comes to alcohol, and then you've got people that live on the streets, is when you've got cold weather, alcohol warms you up. Because alcohol's like, you know, when you've had a few beers, all of a sudden it makes you bulletproof, don't it? You know, I'm not saying you got to walk around thinking you're Johnny Concrete or anything, because I know you don't, but it changes you as a person. You know, you don't feel so cold. You know, like when you've had a few beers with your mates and you're walking around the town and you've only got your shirt on and it's late at night, you don't really notice the cold too much because you've had a bit to drink. And that's why a lot of people drink when they're homeless, is because it blocks the cold out. Because you're intoxicated that much, you can't really feel anything.
Probably blocks a lot out, right? I would assume. Yeah, and I don't think you can just stop. So I think there's stories I've heard of people that if they had have just stopped drinking, they would have died straight away.
Yeah,
like they almost had to kind of like wean their way off it. So to expect someone just to go, I'm going to stop.
I was drinking so much, it was unreal. Like,
you reckon you averaged 80 pints a week?
Yeah, I would, not all the time, but like I would. So how I would do it would be, I was working nights, and I'd start work at say 8 o'clock at night, and I'd finish about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then in the daytime, around about 1 o'clock, 1:30, I'd go to the local pub and I'd meet this old boy, Tez, passed away now. I ended up becoming quite good friends with the guy, and he always used to sit on his own and he'd do his own little thing, and I sort of got good mates with him, and I just used to go sit with him because I was on my own, and I'd have like 3, 4, 5 pints, and then I'd always make sure that I'd got 6-pack pint cans for when I finished work. So I was averaging 10 pints in the working week. Do you know what I mean? And then when it comes to the weekend, from when I got paid on a Thursday, they'd go up a little bit more because I'd got paid. Then the Friday would come. I used to have to work Friday nights, but I'd always make sure that I'd probably have 5 or 6 beers. Some days, one day I had 9 pints and went to work. Nobody knew. Because the thing was with me, I could just drink and drink and drink and drink. It's very rare that you used to see me like stumbling all over the place. You know, I could go on a bender for like 15 hours, 16 hours and run home. And I did used to run home. And it's just, I don't know whether that, you know, when people say, oh, you can drink yourself sober. I don't know whether that's what I used to do or what, but I just used to drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and just keep drinking. To a point where, like, lager didn't really do that much to me. So then I started hitting the Jack Daniels and the vodka. And I used to have like half a bottle of vodka before I'd even touch lager. Because it's 40%, it gets you where you need to be very quickly. Because when I first used to start drinking, can you ever remember the Ready Brek man?
Mm-hmm.
And he had that big glow around him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I used to feel. For the first 5 or 6 pints, 7 pints, or something like that, I used to feel like the Ready Brek man. And it used to put this glow around me, and I used to feel so confident. It was unreal. Not like a big head or anything like that, but in myself, I thought I could be the next astronaut, I could be the next Prime Minister. You give me any puzzle to solve, I could solve this puzzle. I felt that good. But then alcohol's a depressant, yeah? So then all of a sudden, after so long, I'd go and then just go straight into a big low. And then the depression was unreal. I was so bad. But that's what it is. It's like, and that's the thing is with cocaine and alcohol, is cocaine's an upper, and then you've got alcohol, which is a downer. So when you're off your face, because you've been sniffing, when you drink, you can drink more because the cocaine's keeping you up. So you can just drink and drink and drink, but then your heart doesn't know what to do because you've got a depressant and an upper. So I think that, I'm not 100%, but I'm sure somebody told me that that's how James Belushi died. He had spasms in his heart. Might be wrong. That's what someone told me. But I know that it's like, your heart doesn't know what to do. It's like, well, where am I going? Am I going up here or am I going down there? And then that causes a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's why they had the issue with people drinking like on nights out like vodka Red Bull. Do you remember that was all the rage? Because like the vodka would, like you say, just kind of like bring your heart rate down. The fucking Red Bull would spike it with the amount of caffeine, and it was like,
I don't know what to do.
No, so it's interesting. You come up, I think you said a quote in the docu. It was something like, "Alcohol takes you away from who you really are."
Yeah.
But there's a flip to that, and I heard another quote that kind of says it takes you closer to who you are.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's kind of because, like you just said, after a few beers, like I'm like this. I'm actually way more outgoing, way more confident, and probably nicer to be around. There's a point of course, and by the way, I'm not saying this is how you should get closer to who you are. But you know, I come out with all the stories like I'm quite antisocial and all this. I'm actually not. When I've had a few pints, I'm like, this is the real like playful, childish Alex coming through. Yeah, who's not that serious.
It's the same as when it's like I was on about this the other week. Is when, because I like talking about this actually, because it's quite funny and it's really interesting, I think, in watching people, because for argument's sake, say you've got a works Christmas do.
Do you want some water, boy?
No, I'm all right, thanks. You've got a works Christmas do, and you've got you got young Dave that works for you, for argument's sake, and you've got and Dave's super quiet, or you've got Susie that's dead quiet. And she comes to the works do. Next thing you know, she's had a few Stellas and she's dancing on the tables.
Come on,
and,
Susie, let's fucking
you
go.
know, and you're like, Jesus Christ, look at Susie or look at Dave. God. But then sometimes you get other people that are like, gift of the gab, got the swagger at work, and they're all chitty-chatty and this and that. And they have a drink and they're dead quiet. And I just find that fascinating because it takes you away, or going back to what you say, brings you to who you are. For me, it's like when you're not intoxicated, you're who you are. But as soon as you've got this substance in you, all of a sudden it takes you away from who you are. You don't have to be drunk, but you know that slightest little bit when you know it's working. You feel a little bit, a bit warm, or I don't know how to describe it really, but it changes your personality. You're not who you was before you had that drink, or before you had that spliff or that line of coke or whatever. But with drinking, it's like it changes you, completely changes your personality.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether it's a good truth comes out.
Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
It still changes you.
For sure. Yeah.
And I find that really interesting.
It is really interesting, and it's got me really thinking. They all say, the truth comes out when you're drunk kind of thing. So it's like, well, is that true? You read quite a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Have you read Laws of Nature by Robert Greene? It's a big fuck off book.
No, he does another book, doesn't he?
He's done a few, mate. Quite popular ones. He's done the Rules of Power.
I think that's the one, yeah.
Mate, it's dark.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about this kind of stuff, how people will present the opposite of what they're truly feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we go out into Mill Street here and you go to the guy who's got the fucking swagger and the big mouth, he's the most unconfident, insecure guy in the fucking room.
Yeah.
The quiet guy sat back, going about his business. He's probably the guy after a few pints that will be the fucking savage monster. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so interesting.
Yeah.
How we suppress kind of, I guess, down to our upbringing. Because some people who are super confident, they get pulled down pretty hard, that would, you're looking arrogant, you can't be too confident. So they start to kind of layer that in.
Yeah.
And they act a lot more humble than they actually feel inside.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So everyone kind of like creates a character, I think, to fit into society.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be accepted.
Yeah.
I catch myself doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I can't say what I think all the time, otherwise I'd be an outcast. Imagine saying what pops into your head or what you truly think about that dickhead who sat out there. Yeah. You wouldn't. You just keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
And you smile at him and you pretend that, oh yeah, good morning.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that or I can call everyone out all the time.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to put on some persona, right?
Yeah.
And that book describes it perfectly. It's worth reading.
Yeah.
I can lend it you if you want.
I appreciate that. I've got I have the audibles I do in my car because I spend a lot of time on my car. So what have I got at the minute? I think it's Tim Ferriss.
4-hour working week.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I've literally just started it.
Yeah.
Because I travel so far. I live in Atherstone at the minute, and obviously I've got to go to Cov to the gym and back. So there's a good 40 miles or something.
Nice. Good way to educate yourself, though, isn't it? In that.
Yeah.
In the
I struggle reading books. Like, I've got loads of books, but like for some reason, I struggle sitting down and reading a book. Whereas I spend a lot of time on my car, so I'll just have it that way, sort of thing. So
no, it makes total sense. I thought there was going to be a turnaround point in the docu where you got yourself sorted, and that was the point where you're in hospital with the horrendous nosebleeds.
Yeah, that was horrific, mate.
That was the point where I was like, fucking hell.
It was bad, like really bad. I was living in Atherstone, and all of a sudden my nose started bleeding, and it weren't normal, mate. It was really bad. It was gushing out, not dripping, gushing, and it was like something ain't right here. And so we called the ambulance, and they had to take me to the Walsgrave from Atherstone because the Neat and the George Eliot didn't do with nosebleeds or something like that. So they took me there, and I was in hospital for nearly a week. And if in the picture that I've got in my documentary, you'll see these. They were like tampons, and they shoved them up my nose to soak up all the blood. But what was happening was, all the blood, well, a lot of the blood, I was ended up swallowing it, and then it'd end up congealing in my stomach, and then eventually I'd have to sick it out, and they was giving me bowls this sort of big, and I was throwing up just jelly, and I'm not joking. It's probably that thick. Oh. It was and the nurses were going, "Oh my God!" They couldn't believe it. It was just like, but they couldn't understand what was going wrong. Then they said they was thinking about giving me a blood transfusion because I'd lost so much blood, and then.
Did they not ask if you were sniffing drugs?
No. I can't remember. Maybe.
You think they would, right?
Yeah.
Like your nose is bleeding like that. There's damage inside
maybe
your nose.
I can't remember. They probably did. I don't know. But I was all over the place. But then these tampon things that were in my nose, because they were filling up so much, the sides of my nose here felt like they were splitting.
You see it in the picture. They looked like
mad.
literally full of blood.
If you look at my eyes as well, I've got one eye that's bigger than the other. It was like it was so strange. But I didn't go to sleep for about, I think it was 2 days or something like that. And then this woman come round with all the medication for everybody that was in the ward, and I said to her, "If you got anything to help me sleep, I ain't been asleep for 2 days." She goes, "Yeah, of course I have, my darling." She says, and she gave me this sleeping tablet. I've never took sleeping tablets in my life, and it was the best sleep I've ever had. And then I woke up the next day, felt better. Stayed in, I think it was 5 or 6 days. I think I stayed in there for. They let me out, and obviously I needed a lift home. Phoned my dad up. Says, "Can you come and pick me up from the hospital?" He went, "No." And I was like, so my mate lived up the road. I got her to come and pick me up. I got back home, dropped my stuff off. And this is the weird thing about drinking, how powerful it is. It's like, I'd been in hospital for all that time. I was really poorly. And they let me out. I'd gone back home. I got my dog, got changed, got some money, and went out on a 16-hour bender. Bought 2 or 3 grams of coke, and people were saying to me, "You sure you're supposed to be sniffing?" Yeah. And people looking at me, gone out, and I was off my nut. And then I had to walk home with the dog, and I'll never forget it, because my dog, he was such an amazing character. He'd got like human eyes. He used to look at you like we used to say like he had like gorilla eyes. And I always remember him. I was that off my face, and he wanted to go home, and he just kept looking at me with his eyes, and I'll never forget that, because it was like he was looking at me as if to say, "You need to go home, Baz. You need to go home." It was horrible, it was. And then I carried on. I'd been in hospital for all that time, come back out, and in my mind, in my head, I was like, well, I deserve a drink. I've been in hospital all week. I had a drink for like nearly a week. I'll be all right. And it was like, that's so wrong. But I still did it. And I laugh a little bit about my journey and stuff, about some of the things that I did, because I'm able to laugh at it a little bit. But some of the things haunt me because of the people that, like my mum and dad and my sister, that I've made worry so much, you know, and things like that. And it still plays on my mind. That's why I try to be better than I was then. It's really important for me to be completely different and a lot better as a person than I was.
What haunts you the most?
The guilt. Guilt kills me. Just the guilt of upsetting people and being an embarrassment. You know, people used to break their necks to tell my dad how much of a mess I'd been in the night before, even though these people do the same thing. You know, but it was so my dad would end up going home, you know, because he was embarrassed, but I didn't get it because my dad was still sniffing. So it was just weird. But it was. But my mum would be telling me that because my mum was my mum and my mum was my dad, because my dad struggled to have a relationship with us. So it was when my mum would be telling me these things, it was horrible,
So when you get a chance to like move to Aberdeen like you did for work, does part of you think, right, new start, I'm going to be different, or is it just another opportunity to try the local boozers in a different area?
So,
what goes through your head when you get to almost be in a new environment?
So we got some work in Aberdeen for. I was working as a ground worker. Never done it before, but I was just basically a skivvy, and we went there for a month. We didn't come home for a month. I'd got the opportunity to go and earn some decent money. So I took it, and it was just horrendous, mate. Honestly, considering like the mess I was in, to go up there, it's another level because they're crazy when they drink. They really are. I didn't have no Coke. Actually, I tried smack for the first time, and I'm so grateful. It never did anything to me. I only tried it once. I did the Chasing the Dragon where. You put the smack in tin foil and then you light it underneath, and then you sort of put this pipe in your mouth and you suck up and get the fumes, and it didn't do anything. And I'm so grateful that it never did anything, because knowing me, if it did, I probably wouldn't be sat here.
Do you think you were smoking something else? Do you think it was just not what it was?
I don't know, but the guy who I got it off, he was doing it every night, and I knew full well it was smack. Right. But I don't know whether I was doing it wrong or whatever. But it didn't work, whatever it did. And I only ever did it the once, and I'm so glad that I never did it again.
Well, that's when it occurred to me. I was like, there might be an angel looking out for this guy.
Yeah.
That, when you said that, because I was like, if that had been a good hit for you,
yeah,
fucking hell.
I'd have been. It was just horrific up there. The way they drink up there is like, it was mad. I used to, because like in the mornings, because we used to have to work 7 days a week, but like on the weekends we'd only do half a day. But then some days during the week we'd do 16-hour shifts. Lumping concrete about and stuff like that. But like, I'd get up in the morning and I couldn't even climb the ladders because I was shaking so bad. My whole body was I was like a pneumatic drill. Like this, it was horrific. And in the end, they used to have to get somebody else to go up the ladders because I couldn't climb a ladder because I was a mess from drinking. It's like, and it just affected my whole body, my whole mind, everything. I always said that drinking, this is quite good. I always said that drinking takes away 3 things: your mind, your body, and your soul. And it's. I've never known anything as powerful as alcohol. It is absolutely horrendous. And I'll tell you something: anybody thinks that they've got it all under control, they ain't. Because I was that person. I really thought that there's no way that I'm going to end up like them 2 guys that I knew from around my area. Oh, God, look at the state of them. I'm never going to end up like that. Next thing you know, I was loads worse.
I think it's possible for somebody to have alcohol under control, though. So maybe somebody who's been brought up in a way that it's just a couple of glasses of beer at the weekend.
Yeah. I'm not saying that everybody's like... What I mean is... I mean, I probably worded that wrong then. But what I mean is if you think you've got a drink problem... Even if I don't mean like where you're sitting on a park bench and you're homeless or anything like that. Because a lot of people don't understand really what they think is what a drink problem is. If drinking is causing the slightest little bit of a problem in your life, it's a drink related problem. And you have to look at that.
I heard this stat, Baz. It said 80% of people in the UK who drink have some form of addiction or problem with alcohol. Yeah. So that might just be, like you said, they turn to it because they're stressed. Yeah. They might get a little bit rowdy, like lads do after a few beers, or they become a tiny bit more vocal, like, I'm not saying... Just something that it triggers something in you that isn't good, and even that can be considered a bit of a problem.
Well, it's poison, isn't it?
Well, I guess if we sat here and had a smoke and then I was a bit rowdy, you'd be like, Alex, you need to stop fucking smoking that. Alcohol's way more socially accepted. It's just the norm. And one of my mates said the other day, he's like, I'm actually the guy who's not normal anymore because I don't drink. My friends think I'm the freak. Yeah. I don't drink. I think this is another really, really good point, I think, as well, is the social side of drinking alcohol is when you want to pack drinking in,
like when I pack, well, I knew that I had to pack it in, and I knew that I couldn't go anywhere near what I was doing before, because it's like having a gambling problem and going sitting in a bookies for an hour and expecting not to have a gamble. It's like being a sex addict and going to a brothel and expecting not to have sex. You know, and Matty Evans always used to say to me, it's all about putting yourself in positions, Baz. You know, so like I had to basically break away from every single thing and person that I was associated with before. Everything, music, books, everything. So my life was programmed one way, and that was to get wrecked. If you want to get wrecked, come and see me. I was a professional. You know, I was so good at it, even though it weren't a good thing. But I didn't know nothing else. That's why I called the documentary "Who Am I?" I'll get the title off Tony Summers, because he used to say that a lot. And it was, I'd been doing this thing, this drinking thing and the drugs thing for all this time, and because when I said it takes you away from who you really are, because I was intoxicated more or less all the time. I was never Baz. So when I packed in drinking, it was like, so what do we do now then? And I cried. I sat on the settee and cried like a little baby because I thought my life had ended because I couldn't go to the pub. It was horrific. And then the girl I was with at the time, she said, when you start doing the things that you want to do, Baz, with your life, and stop following everybody else around like a sheep, she goes, then you'll meet new friends that are into the same things that you want to do, like skydiving. And I honestly thought she was full of shit. I just thought, are you mad? You know, like, I really honestly thought my life had ended. But then what I had to do then was completely reprogram my whole life. My surroundings, the books I read, the music I listen to, everything had to be changed. And that's what people can't do. Like, we've been conditioned to drinking ever since we was born because it's what the adults do. Like, I grew up in the working men's clubs where my mum used to go and play bingo with my grandma, and then the blokes would go and have a pint in the other bar. You know, and the blokes used to be separate from the women and all that, and back in the day. And I sort of grew up around that sort of era, and it was bred in you. We used to have like a packet of crisps and a Coke and some 10p's for the video machines, like Akari Warriors and all that. I don't know if you can remember them games, but you know, like the old arcade video games, and you know, and they'd give you money just to go and shut you up, you know, and then like you grow up thinking, and I used to think, I can't wait till I'm 18 because I'll get to go to the pubs and do the adult things, you know, and all that, and then, you know, it's conditioned into us a lot, you know, and I just think it's the social side is what people can't handle, because all of a sudden, when I stopped drinking, the phone stopped. There's no text messages. Coming out for a beer, Baz? You know, nothing. So I'd gone from having what I thought was loads and loads of friends to literally none. And that's where a lot of people can't deal with. That's because they're that used to having loads of friends, and then all of a sudden, because you don't drink anymore, people think that there's something wrong with you, and they're like, "So are you? You're like, I just don't want to drink. Why not? You mad?" And they do look at you like that. It's the same with the drug culture as well. It's exactly the same thing. So like, all of a sudden, you ain't really got any friends anymore. So it's like, I'm on my own here. So then what I used to do is, I thought, if I don't start going out and doing things, then I'm going to end up like one of these little hermit people where they're dead frightened to go outside and they're too scared because everything will be too loud and too fast because they're too in the comfort of their own home. So it's quite sad, but like, I used to book tables at restaurants for two people, and then I used to go out and have food, and when I get there, the waiter would be like, "Oh, where's your?" And I'd make out I'd been stood up, just so, because I didn't want to be sat there on my own, people looking at me thinking I'm some sado, and then I'd get in my car after I'd finished my meal and I'd cry my eyes out because I felt such a sad person that I've been to a restaurant on my own. Cinemas, same thing. But then I made myself do it even more. Because I knew that if I didn't, I'd end up falling back into that hermit way of thinking, and I wouldn't go out the house, and then I wouldn't be able to see the world. I wouldn't be able to do anything with my life because I'd be too frightened. So I had to put myself in the most uncomfortable positions to be able to make myself stronger. So then it was like, it was horrible. I even put aftershave on and everything, you know, like as if I'm going out, I'm taking myself out on a date, you know, but then that's where I learned about myself so much. And then I thought to myself, but now I can go anywhere on my own. I can go to the cinema, don't feel sad. I can go to a restaurant, no bother. I'm not bothered.
Mate, what you just said is absolute fucking gold. And this is why you're such an inspiration, because there'll be people who haven't got any addictions to alcohol or drugs, but that find themselves in situations like you just mentioned, where their life is in their own front room and they're lonely and they're bored and they're sad. So if people can listen to that and take some inspiration from
it's really important. It is as scared as you are and as embarrassed as what you might feel, fucking I ain't going sitting in a restaurant on my own. Do you know what I mean? And like, everyone's going to think I'm a right sad twat, you know, and all these feelings, but then what that does is that eats away, and all it does is it grounds you, and it grounds you, and it grounds you, and it grounds you to the point where you've super glued yourself to the floor, and you literally can't move. So it's like, well, now you're in a worse position, because the longer this goes on, the more time goes on. Next thing you know, 5 years have passed you, and all these things that you wanted to do and go and see in the world was never going to happen. So something has to give. So you have to go towards it, because if you don't, you're just going to be sat in this position where nothing's ever going to happen.
I agree. I've done something similar. The weird thing with the cinema, I still can't do the cinema on my own. Mate, I've travelled to Iceland and all sorts of places on my own. It can go for meals, coffee out, no problem. The cinema, I don't know why, mate. I just get so fucking down and depressed if I'm on my own in the cinema. I think it's traditionally back in the day for me, it was always like a second or third date thing you do with a girl that you like. Do you know what I mean? Back in the day. Yeah. First thing, you know, you go for a drink, second date was cinema or something. I think it just brings back those kind of memories. But I couldn't find the actual turning point in the docu for you, because there was quite a few. Like, I mean, the nosebleed thing was one. Like, that I thought Baz is going to change after this. And then, boom, it hit that. Then you had time in Aberdeen where you discovered prostitutes as well. That was a story where you
funny. Should it when we had the premiere of Who Am I at Warwick Uni, Cov Uni. It was about 200 people came. That was incredible. We had Mind come from the mental health charity. They was blown away. They've asked me to be an ambassador. So that's sort of
mate, they've got a base here, you know. The South Warwickshire one, they're based here.
Oh, really?
In this building. I'm meeting one of the girls from there next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they do this kind of meet up, but nobody's going. But the problem is, what I think's happening is they're kind of marking it as saying, guys, come and join this meeting. But it's pretty much saying, if you're suicidal. And I'm like, not many guys are going to go look at that and go, oh, I want to go to that.
Yeah.
It probably should be a bit more like, come and have a coffee, meet other guys and chat about X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's very like, you almost have to admit you've got a severe problem to go to the meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people are ready to do that.
Words are very powerful though, aren't they? You know, like there's ways of wording things, aren't they?
Sure.
You know, like you say, and I think that could have been worded differently but yeah, it's,
so back to the prostitute story, man. I feel like you're going to go down there, because that made me giggle. I got to admit,
mate, you've never ever seen anything like that in your life. Like, so every day, like where we were staying, it used to be a big nightclub apparently, and the pub that we were drinking in every night, they hated the English, and it was nuts, mate, honestly. And the place we were staying at, that used to be a big nightclub, and back in the day, and converted it to a big hotel and everything. I can't remember hardly anything about the hotel. I was so drunk every day, and but there was always these prostitutes outside, and
it's the first time you saw prostitutes as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that blew my head off.
Yeah,
because I've only ever seen them on the bill.
Yeah,
you know, or Starsky and Hutch or something. Do you know what I mean? Like on the cop programs where they get arrested and that. You know, and it was mad, and it was just like I was seeing it. I'm like, oh my god, like, you know. Anyway, every day I'd be coming back from the pub, and they're like, "Do you want some business?" And I'm like, "Fucking no way!" Like, you know, scared to death of them, sort of was. And then, but then, like, it's playing on my mind, ain't it? And then this girl, she says, "You can have me and my mate for 20 quid or something like that." And I'm like, "You got no chance." Like, and then she wouldn't leave me alone. And a mate left, and I was like, "All right, come on then." Oh my god, mate, it was just horrific, absolutely horrific. We got in this cubicle. Can't believe I'm telling you, it's funny. But we get in this cubicle, and she opened a bag to get some condoms out. The bag's full of condoms, and then she opened up. It's got quite a big bag, and then she's got a blade in it like that. And I was like, "What the fuck?" And we gets it on. It's like chucking a welly up the A5. It was unreal, honestly. And it was just like, and then after, I'd got no money on me, so we had to go to the cash machine. And she stood right behind me. She's got a big blade in her bag, and I'm steaming. And then I ended up giving her, I think it was an extra tenner, and it was like, I've just had one of the worst experiences of my whole life, and I've given her an extra 10 quid. It was like, what are you doing? But like, Aberdeen was just unbelievable. Like, it was mad. The way they drink is just, they drink to like, where I was anyway, I'm not saying they all do it, because they probably don't, but like where I was, it was, they just go mad. Like mad, and all fighting everywhere. My mate who I worked with, he got battered by this massive guy, but he deserved it because he was gobbing off. But it was just a mad experience. And was there for a month, didn't come out for a month, and it was just nuts. It was, but with getting clean and stuff like that, it was like, it was the calms after the calms. That after that episode, I knew I had to do something. I think, without telling you or anybody else, for me personally, if I'd have carried on drinking, I'd have been dead within a day or two, because I was gone. And to be in that position where, like, you really don't want to be here anymore, not toying with it, oh, I'm sick of this, oh, fool, you know, not, but really thinking, do you know what, this is it. Like, you know, in the documentary, this has been on my mind for a bit.
Yeah.
In the documentary, which I didn't tell anybody, and when I'm talking about hanging myself, and it shows you a picture of a tree, that's the actual tree.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, Steve, when we was doing the documentary, Steve said to me, he said, I've got a list of things that I want you to go into, because I do a bit of photography. He said to me, he said, I want you to go and take some photos of some certain things so we can put it, so when you're talking about certain things, these photos will come up, because he's obviously does what he does, thinking outside the box and whatever. So he said, can you get a picture of the tree? Well, where I live now, the tree is literally round the corner from where I live. It's up in the golf course in Aviston, and it was raining. I've got my camera taking a picture of this really old tree with hardly any leaves on it, sort of thing. And these blokes were playing golf, thinking, "What's he doing?" Do you know what I mean? But it didn't bother me. It was. I hadn't been there for so long, and I'm really glad I went, because it made me realise how far I'd come as a person. You know, mentally, physically, spiritually, the whole lot of it. You know, like I used to go and sit by that tree all the time, because I used to take my dog up. We used to go for a walk around the golf course, because you're allowed to, and it's a beautiful golf course, and you can see for miles. It's got some great views, and I used to go and sit by this tree all the time. You know, it's been on my mind for as long as I can remember. It was horrible, but to be able to sit there and see that, it was a nice feeling. It's not nice. I don't know how to explain it, but it just made me realise how far I'd come.
Yeah.
Because I was so close to not being here.
Yeah. Well, I think what the most shocking story for me in the whole of the documentary is because you kind of like, you know, you suspect that you might have had thoughts about killing yourself. Like, that's all kind of like normal. But the fact that you got the carving knife and slashed yourself 100 times.
Yeah.
Covered in blood, and then just went and sat in that chair by the window.
Yeah.
I think that's the epitome of like, just, it's
I was
done.
crying out for help massively that
Yeah.
day. Massively. I had a big carving knife as well. This is another story that made everybody laugh in the premiere. We had I had a big carving knife, blade on it like this, and it's funny, but it could have been so different. But I'd got this knife, and I was basically got it here, and the whole plan was to, like, 3, 2, 1, boom, and I was at home on my own. The girl I was with at the time, she was at work, and 3, 2, 1, and I'm just going to ram it straight into my belly and just bleed out, whatever goes on. And I was proper, I had enough. Anyway, gets the knife, I'm like here, and as soon as the point of it touched my belly, I was like, ah. So I knew that I was never going to do it because it hurt too much. You know, and I was like, you can't even do this properly, can you? You know, and because like, I'm always upsetting people because I was drunk all the time and I can never get anything right because my life's a mess and I'm an embarrassment. I can't even kill myself properly. You're just a loser. And oh God, it was just everything that's going on in your mind is absolutely mad. Literally is mad, you know. So
you started to cut yourself instead?
Yeah, so I've cut, and then I was upstairs in the front bedroom and I've cut myself. There's a couple of scars I've still got on here somewhere. I've had the tattoos on here, so he's covering them up a little bit, but there's one there. But one of them was quite deep. I didn't need stitches, but it was quite deep, and you could see quite into my arm a little bit. And it was, and then the girl I was with, she'd come over. She got dropped off. I seen her from where I was sat in the front window. She got dropped off. She looked up, seen me, but she didn't know what had gone on. And then she come in the bedroom, and there's blood everywhere and all that. And she was just like, "What are you doing in here?" And then she's gone, "Oh my God," you know. So she's gone absolutely mental, and it was just horrific. Like the behaviour was so weird, you know, so like. Literally living in madness, and it's horrible because I knew that I'd lost my own mind, and that's a really scary thing to be, like place to be, is when you know that you're in trouble here. You know, you really are in trouble. You need to sort something out. And this guy, she goes, "Will you go to the AA? Will you go to the AA?" And I did, and I was like, "I'll do anything." And I was at that point, I'd have done anything. And she got this guy to come out. His name's George, and he was like my guardian angel. Never met the guy in my life, Scottish guy. And he was, he'd been in the AA for 30, 40 years or something like that. And made a phone call to the AA. This woman answered the phone. She goes, "Will you go to a meeting?" And I'll do anything. And then this George had come and picked me up. Really well dressed, got driving gloves on, really polite. He was an amazing guy. Took me to a meeting in Hinckley in a church, and I daren't go because I know everybody. Wherever I go, I always know somebody. And I thought, because you've got the embarrassment thing there as well, where people don't like talking about they've got a drink problem or a drug problem, and I thought, shit, what if I know somebody, you know? I walked through the door, and the guy making the tea lived around the corner from my mum, and I was like, "You're fucking joking me." But then I thought, hang on a minute, why is he here? But it weren't as bad. But then I didn't know why I was the way I was. I didn't know why I was drinking. I didn't know why my life was that out of control. I knew I was drinking too much and stuff, but I just didn't get it. And then when you go to an AA meeting, there's always a guy, I don't know what it's like now, but at the time, there's a guy that they'll get somebody to do a share, and they'll share their story. Nobody can interrupt. And then after, you can ask questions if you want, or other people can talk about whatever they want to talk about. And I'd never been to this meeting before, and there's loads of these people all sat around. And they was all really kind to me, these people were. And this guy started talking about his story, and I started crying. Only little, I weren't in bits, but little tears were coming down from my eyes. And I was like, now I know what's wrong with me. Because he was saying these things, and I'm like, I'll do that. I'll go there. I'll say them things. You know, and it was like, it started answering loads of questions, and it was like, now I know who I am. Now I know, like, not who I am, but now I know why I'm the way I am.
What conclusion did you come to?
So like it just like the things that I've got a big drink problem.
Yeah,
you know,
so you didn't know that before?
No, right. I knew I was drinking too much, but I didn't realise to the extent that like I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like because you got a big drink problem, but then I don't think that many people really understand what alcoholism is. You know, and I really don't. You know, people think that just because you drink, like, oh, you're an alky. It's not like that. You know, it's the power that it has over somebody where they lose their families, they lose everything. You know, there was one guy that guy that was sharing his story. He was a multi-millionaire. He'd got a couple of businesses, couple of cars, went on all the best holidays, got all the best clothes, and he lost everything, and he ended up living in the spare room back at his mum and dad's.
No way.
Just through drink.
Is your dad still alive?
No, passed away in December.
Of just gone?
Yeah.
What was your relationship with him like towards the end?
We sort of made up. a bit. I was living with him in lockdown and that, and we had this massive argument, mate. Honestly, it was like I told him everything that I thought of him, and I was so vile. We had this big. He says, "You've been dying to say that to me for years, ain't you?" And I went, "Yeah," and it felt fucking great. It was like, all from my childhood, all through my whole life, just come out, you know, because he weren't nice to me. And I was just like, I just ripped into him, and I was just like, I'm having you speaking to me like that. Who the fuck do you think you are? And then it went from there. I'm never nasty to anybody, or I never badmouth people or anything like that. But it was very deep rooted, and it felt great, and it did clear the air a little bit, to be fair. And then when my dad was poorly, he died of cancer in the end, and he ended up in Martin Hospice at Cov, and it was absolutely nuts. But we ended up. Sort of making peace and it was good, you know. It was, but it was hard because realistically, like all I ever wanted was a dad. You know, like growing up, my mum was my mum was my dad, but my dad was there, but he weren't really a dad. Couldn't talk to the guy. You know, like there's times when I tried to approach my dad to try and talk to him, and he said to me once, he says, "Yeah, that's because you're a sad." C-U-N-T. I think that's how it works. I can't stand that word, but he said that to me, and that blew me away, mate. Honestly, it was horrible. So I couldn't ever talk to my dad because there was times in my life when because of the drink and the drugs and stuff, I needed someone to talk to, and man to man, I wanted to be able to talk to my dad, and he blew me away.
Did he see the documentary, or was that released after?
So we had to let him watch the documentary before I invited him to the premiere, because when I say at the start of the documentary, like I got my first line of coke off my dad, when that come up in the cinema, but you could hear some people go, oh, you know, as in like, you wanker, yeah. You know. And my dad didn't know a lot of these people, so it wouldn't have been right for my dad to be there and like everybody judge my dad when they don't really know him. Mm. It's not fair, is it? So like we had to let him watch it, and you know what he said? I said, "Did you like the documentary?" And he said, "No." He sent me a message saying it's made me cry, and I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you said that you loved me," and he says, "and I didn't think that you did." And I said, "Did you like the documentary?" And he just sent me a thumbs up emoji, and it was just like, he didn't talk about nothing else, never said anything about it, nothing, never mentioned it again, you know. So, but that's what we didn't want people to think, that it's directed at my dad and he's a horrible dad. It's just the way my dad was. You know, like some people will listen to this podcast and they'll think, you know, his dad was this and that, whatever. And that's up to them. But like, my dad was just my dad, you know, and he was just the way he was, you know. And for years I always had this, because he wasn't that nice to my mum either. He was never violent, but he just wasn't that nice to my mum. And me and my sister were so close to my mum, and we didn't like him being like nasty to my mum. Do you know what I mean? So like, it was just mad. It's just, them things are hard to swallow sometimes because he's not here now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, didn't have the best relationship with him, but I loved him because he's my dad. Of
course, yeah. Can you express yourself more now since his passing, in terms of like, you haven't got to worry about upsetting him?
Yeah. Especially with this as well, especially with the documentary and my story and stuff. You know, I want to try and get out a lot more and do sort of more of this sort of thing, and try and inspire people that it's all right to talk about yourself, you know, like, as if you've got problems, you know, whatever it is. There's no. See, a lot of people get ashamed about talking about their addictions and stuff like that, but I'm not ashamed of it at all. But
that's because you've overcome it, right?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, words are really powerful. I don't label myself an alcoholic either, because I don't want that pressure on me. You know, like, when it comes to drinking, I'll see, especially this time of year, there'll be people on my social media that'll post pints of Peroni or pints of Corona. Corona was my favourite. Corona's ace. Do you know what I mean? A bit of lime, whatever. And it's, but it's such a refreshing, lovely drink, whatever. But I don't gag for a drink, but I do think about it, because when the summer comes, I can remember last year somebody had posted a picture of a pint of Corona, and I was just like, oh my God. You know, but it weren't like, oh God, I'm going to go back on the drink, you know. And then, you know, anything like that. It's just, a nice pint.
Dude, it's a bit
know?
like when a cheeseburger comes on the TV or
Yeah.
something, you go, oh, I'd fucking love to eat that. You know you're not going to, but...
Definitely, you know, but it's, I think about drink a lot, you know, like, I remember once this girl I was going out with, she said to me once, she goes, right, we'll play a game. And I said, what are you on about? She says, what does the summertime mean? I went, beer gardens. And I was dead serious. She went, what does barbecue mean? I went, getting wrecked. She went, no. It's about socialising, having some nice food, put some nice music on, enjoying your time with your friends, chatting, you know, being happy and all that. I says, but that don't happen, does it? Because nobody really eats anything and everyone just gets pissed. No. And it's like beer gardens. She's like, no. It's like the nice weather, the summer vibes, happy, all this sort of thing. And she's like, it's not all everything she said. My answer was alcohol related.
No, I understand that. So you kind of like during your times of you being at the bottom, you were struggling for reasons to live. What are your reasons to keep being a good person now? Then, like, what drives you to not drink?
I know that I'll never drink again. I don't take it for granted, and the complacency. I understand my relationship with alcohol. I know that if I started drinking again, I'd die, because I know I'd poison myself because I'd drink how I used to, and that'd be so much because I haven't drank for so long. I'd just poison myself, or I'd go into some depressed mess, and then I'd just end up doing myself in. But I really understand my relationship with alcohol. Do you know what I mean? So like, I don't worry about it too much. I never think that I'm going to end up back on the drink or anything like that, because I think I'm in a really good place and I've got good people around me, and I surround myself with better things for me. Do you know what I mean? So, what did you ask me again? Sorry.
Your reasons for not drinking. So, like I say, you struggle to determine, you know, what's the point of this life.
I just want to be the best that I can be.
Yeah, because you've got things to live for now, right? Like,
Yeah,
like when I
loads.
look at, I mean, this is the inspiring part, right? All of these accomplishments that you've done. This is the bit that kind of brought me to tears, and I was like, because if it had just ended after 40 minutes, that docu, like, you wouldn't have got to see all this great stuff that you've done. And that was when I was like, fucking hell. That's when I realised, I think, the transformation between where you were and where you are now. Yeah. So to a professional skydiver, can I call you that?
Probably not professional.
Qualified, sorry,
I'm a qualified skydiver. Yeah, I always wanted to know what it's like to be able to fly, and I think we all did. You know, when we watched Superman, when Superman first came out, God, I'd got the pants and everything. Superman pants, the t-shirt, the pajamas, the slippers, everything. Like, I think humans' obsession with flight has been going for so many years, but I've always wanted to know what it's like to be able to fly. And I did a tandem jump in 1996. I ended up doing 6 tandem jumps. And then I was working at Aston Martin at the time, and they have the old COV fortnight off, 2 weeks off in the summer. And so I went and booked an accelerated freefall course. This is probably be about 8 years ago now. And it's a little bit like... you know how you used to be able to have your driving lessons all week, and then you have your test at the end? It's a little bit like that. And I've got the maddest story to tell you about that. And this is brilliant. And so I paid for that. I think it was about 1,700 quid. I got the time off work. I booked the course, and then I went on to do the course, so I could become a fully qualified skydiver. So I'd learn how to fly. And this is amazing. So on your very first jump, you have to go up with 2 instructors. And when you've got your jumpsuit on, you've got like a handle sort of sewn into your arm, on your bicep, and then one on the other side, one on the bottom of your leg, and both on each side. So when you jump out of the plane and you get stable, when you're flying like this, there'll be an instructor this side and there'll be an instructor that side, and they hold the handles like this to steady you. Because when you first jump out, you're going to be all over the place. You get sensory overload. You don't know what the fuck's going on, blah, blah, blah. But they just hold you. Then you've got certain drills that you have to do on the way down. And then that's your level 1. That's your level 1 done. And as long as you get the tick, you know, to pass that level, you'll go on to 2, 3, 4, and I think there's about 8. So we've gone up to about 13,000 feet, and you fall at about 130, 125, 130 mile an hour, something like that. So as we jumped out, the two instructors jumped out with me, and then we get stable, and I have to look at my big altimeter, which is the big clock there that tells you how high or how low I am. And you look at your clock and you read it, and at the time I think it was about 12,000 feet, and I go, 12,000 feet, straight forward, no one can hear you. And then you look to your left, I look at Dave, whoever, and I go, 12,000 feet, wait for the thumbs up. Look at Steve, 12,000 feet, wait for the thumbs up. And then I've got a little bit of play time. I think when it gets to about 5,500 feet, and I'll do a couple of practice pulls, and then I have to pull my parachute, and then once my parachute's been deployed, my instructors, they're gone, and they'll just land and then wait for me to get back and then brief me on my jump. So I've got to about 12,000 feet. I've looked at Dave and I've gone, 12,000 feet. He's given me the thumbs up. I've looked at Steve. I've gone, twat, and my parachute's gone off on its own at 12,000 feet. So my instructors are gone. They're still gone, 130 mile an hour, gone, see you later. I've got a radio in my helmet. They can speak to me on the floor, but I can't speak to them. It's only a one-way thing. So this is my first jump solo, and my parachute's gone off 2 miles up in the air. Honestly, I can't tell you how scared I was. And my parachute's gone up, and as soon as it goes up, you grab your toggles and you pump the brakes down just to make sure that your canopy's fully inflated. And I'm thinking, fuck am I supposed to do now? But I knew the first thing I have to do is turn into wind, because if you've got the wind on your back, you could drift off and end up in Cornwall or somewhere. So you turn into wind, and then because the wind's coming against you, you end up sort of going straight to the floor sort of thing. Got that sorted, and then I was heading into a massive cloud. And then as soon as I got into this cloud, I couldn't see a thing apart from me and my parachute. Nothing else. Couldn't see the ground, couldn't see anything. As I got out of the cloud, I've looked at the floor, looked at my altimeter. I'm 9,000 feet, scared to death, thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do? But all the people that was in my in the plane when I jumped, the guy on the floor, he's got a telescope, and basically what he'll do to identify us is he'll look up through the telescope and he'll say, right, and he'll look and he'll go, Alex, if you can hear me, click your legs together, and then you'll be clicking your legs together, and he'll be like, right, Alex is over there. Baz, if you can hear me, click legs together. I'll do that. And then he's over there. So he knows where we all are. And then he'll say, right, as you're coming in, he'll guide you down. Alex, 180 degrees to your left. You'll turn your canopy, and he'll guide you down, guide you down, guide you down. Then you flare your canopy, and then you'll land and you walk off. So I can hear him saying, Baz, if you can hear me, click your legs together. So I'm clicking, mate, like proper. And he's gone, nothing. But he don't know that my canopy's gone off really early, till my instructors get back and tell him what's gone on. But all the other lads, they're all coming into land, so he knows where they are, but he can't really see me because I'm too high up. And I'm thinking, shit. Anyway, I've got so far down, and he's gone, Baz, if you can hear me, click legs together. So I'm proper clicking here. And he went, there you are. Where you been? I'm thinking, it ain't funny, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you ever had turbulence in a plane? Yeah. So I'll get down to about 4,000 feet. 3,500 feet, something like that, and I hit some turbulence, right? Well, when you're in a plane, it's bad enough, but when you're under a canopy, it feels like it's going to make your canopy collapse. And I was so scared, Alex, I swear to God, right? It was like, it felt like it was pushing me all over the place and all that. It was horrible. And then I come out of that, and then he guided me down, come down, landed, got my parachute together, and I thought, because you have to sign in when you get back on this thing to make sure, so he knows everyone's back safe. And I thought I was going to get a real bad bollocking and all sorts of things, like, so, because I didn't know what had gone on. And then the guy had got a GoPro on, one of my instructors. So in the briefing room, they've got a big projector screen, and they put the footage on there, and we've kept rewinding it, watching it, and I'm thinking, and it was like, don't worry about it, it ain't your fault. And I was like, oh, thank God for that. And we think what had happened was, as we jumped out, my handle that you pull to deploy your parachute weren't tucked in properly, and as we've gone out, because you're falling so fast and it's so windy, the winds took it, and then they said that's what we ended up going with. And then within about an hour I had to go back up again, and that was the hardest thing, because I'd had such a scary experience. You have to go straight back up, because if you don't, the fear will ground you and you won't go back up. So you have to go back up. So, but then when I went back up, I was flying then, and I was like, not literally, but like, I started racing through the levels, got up to 8, category 8, I think it is. Past that, I think I had to re-jump that twice because I kept spinning like an helicopter, and that's proper scary as well because I was completely out of control. But they'd come over to me and fly and steady me, and we got that sorted. And then when you pass your level 8, you have to go, I think it's level 8, you have to do 10 consolidation jumps all on your own. So the very first time you jump on your own, you've got no instructor to come and save you or help you out or do anything. You've got to be really on it, Alex. You know what I mean? Like proper on the ball, because you're jumping out of an aeroplane. And it's one of the best jumps I had, the first one, on my own. And it's perfect. Really stable, really steady. And then, but I haven't jumped for about 2 years. That's another mad thing. I went about 2 years ago. I jumped. I landed perfectly, and I mean like stepping off a curb. But I landed so gracefully. The week later, I was teaching somebody at the gym, one of the kids, and we'd got a boxing class starting at 5 o'clock. And I said, "Come on, we have to get out now because the kids' class is on." So we went to get out, and there was the bar from the lat pull down on the floor. I stood on it on purpose, and it nearly snapped my ankle. It was horrific. Never had pain like it. And so I couldn't jump because I thought if I have a dodgy landing, it's going to snap. You know, so it didn't stop me going to jiu-jitsu though. But I had to stop. So I haven't jumped for about 2 years, but I will definitely go back at some point. I've done about 45, 50 jumps, I think, something like that on my own.
I love their theory of like if you have a bad jump and you're scared, you go back straight away, because that goes back to what you were saying about that fear of like even the restaurant situation. Like you've got to put yourself back in that position. Now. You've got to get used to the fear. You've got to overcome it. Otherwise, like you say, your world will shrink and you won't jump ever again. Yeah, it's consistent throughout. And I think this is kind of like what I was getting at. I think you've got so many things in your life now that you're passionate about and enjoy. And I think people undervalue the importance of having these things. You're a professional boxing coach. You're a qualified skydiver, you're a photographer, you're curious, you're playful. Like you've got hobbies and interests, haven't you?
Yeah.
That don't exist inside of the pub.
Yeah.
And I think without them, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I drink? So it just sounds like you've replaced the old life with something better.
Yeah, like coffee shops.
Yeah, I fucking love coffee shops.
I've gone from like being in pubs to like coffee shops.
And the amount of money I spend in Starbucks is ridiculous.
It is. It's unreal.
Yeah, I buy 100 quid on those vouchers at a time.
Yeah.
£3.5 it is for a cup of tea at Marcus Starbucks.
It's
£3.5.
It's unreal, ain't it? I was in there this morning at 7 o'clock.
Well, that's a good thing they open early.
Yeah.
I like to go in there with a book and read every morning for an hour.
It's just a little bit of time to you say it's just something you enjoy. It's something that's important to you, isn't it? You know. So, but yeah, the skydiving thing is unbelievable. Like, I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And like there's a woman there called Dillis Price. She's passed away now, and she was on the Pride of Britain Awards, and she's got her own charity for disabled people. And I met her, I think 2 or 3 times, because I jump in Nottingham at a place called Langer, Skydive Langer, and she was the oldest female skydiver in the world, and she was still jumping when she was 83.
Legend.
83, and that's on her own.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, I've never seen that. She was the loveliest woman, and she said to me one day, I said, "Can I get your photo, Dillis?" And she said, "Oh, of course." She looked just like your typical grandma, but she flew, and it was just the most maddest thing. And she says, everybody needs something in their life. It doesn't have to be skydiving. It could be knitting. It could be anything. You need something in your life, because going to work and then going home scares me to death. It frightens me to death. Like, because when I was drinking, I never went anywhere. I never did anything. I had no nice clothes. I didn't drive. I didn't have any nice holidays. I wore the same clothes for years, literally years. I was just a tramp. And I can remember my mum saying to me once, "You look like a drinker, Baz." And then things stick with me. She weren't being, she was trying to tell me to stop, but I'm quite a sensitive guy anyway, but she didn't want me to like, "Oh, good, you're getting on at me," and all that sort of thing. But she's basically saying you need to smart yourself up, mate, because you look terrible, you know, in a polite way without trying to, like, you know, say it how it is, if you know what I mean. So, but
so do you put more attention onto things like that now? How you look, the things that you've got in your life, the experiences that you have, the holidays that you go on to. Is that now become an important thing for you?
Massively. So, like I said to you, sorry, mate. So, like I said to you before we started recording, I said, being late for me is one of the worst things that you can be. For me personally, when I was drinking, it was like a military operation. My whole life was designed about going to the pub and anything to do with drinking and money, because I always needed to know where my next drink was coming from, or my next session, whatever. So it was planned, unreal. It was mad. So, like, I was always in the pub at 11 o'clock, bang on. Not every single day, but most of the time I was always in the pub, and I was never late. And if I weren't late, I was early. And I thought to myself, so if I was never late for the pub, there should be never, ever, ever any excuse for me being late when I'm sober. Ever. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, some of the things so what I did was, this is a really good thing that I quite, I use quite a lot for myself, is that, like, there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting a drink or another line of Coke. Nothing. And there never was. Whenever I needed drink, whether I had to borrow the money, I was never a thief. I used to help myself to my dad's. He's got like a bowl that he used to put £2 coins in and 20p's for some reason, and he had loads of them. So I used to take like the odd few, probably stealing if you really want to look at it. But I never used to steal off anybody else outside of the house or anything like that. And but there's nothing going to stop me from getting what I wanted. Nothing. And there never ever was, Alex, like the urge inside my body to get money for alcohol was so powerful. And I thought to myself one day, I wonder if I can use that urge and that power to get what I want in life, but in a good way. So I've got to make my life better. So that's what I try and do. I try and push. Jeff Thompson said to me one day, he says, you've got to use all that energy and push it into... And I was thinking, how the fuck do you do that? You know, when he comes out with these things and it blows your mind, don't he? Because he's so good at what he says. And I just think, how do you do that? How do you do that? And now I know, you know, and it's like pushing all that energy that I had for a drink and all that for Coke, and to get wrecked basically, but in a good way, you know. And it's like, you've just got to make sure that you just keep going. Tony Summers used to say to me, just keep going, Baz. I'll say it to myself every day, keep going. As when things get really tough, it's like, because I'm just like anybody else, even though I've done this documentary and I jump out of planes and I'll go jiu-jitsu and do all these things, I struggle just like anybody else. And I'm very, very harsh on myself as well. Probably too harsh, to be fair. But it's pushing yourself to be that better person than I was that drives me. You know, like when you say, I never went nowhere, I never went on holidays, I want to travel the world. And I will travel the world. And that's next on my list. And I'll go on my own because I know I can. Because I've done my work. I've done the work, as in being on my own for so long. I know, even though I'm scared to death, I know I've got to think about Japan at the minute. But I want to go Japan. I want to go Colombia. People laugh when I say Colombia because I used to sniff loads of coke.
It's supposed to be absolutely beautiful.
It's supposed to be. I know a few people that have been there.
Joe's been there, Matt has been there.
Yeah, and
but it's weird because you say, you know, about like you're too harsh on yourself. Before I might have gone, yeah, you know, give yourself a break. But usually you find it's those insecurities and what we might call shadows that are the reason that you're going to go and travel the world. And the reason why you want to be such a good man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like turning that critical voice. Actually, that critical voice can push us towards good things.
Yeah.
So it's like Jeff says, yeah, that's an energy in you. You can either use it to destroy yourself or to drive yourself forward.
Yeah.
You'd like Robert Greene, I think.
Yeah.
He's one of the first people that comes along and goes, don't deny that shadow. All that resentment and anger you've got in you, don't pretend it's not there. It's the worst thing you can do. Use it.
Yeah.
Go jiu-jitsu. Be angry for that hour.
I get like, the thing is with me, I'm very all or nothing. And once I get something into my mind and it's really stuck there, I'll do it, you know. And it's mad because I've noticed as well. Sometimes we forget how far we've come. Sometimes, and I think that's a big thing to address as well. Sometimes, because sometimes I get really down because we've got life going on and things, you know. And then some days I'll get that down. I'm like, you know, you feel like the world's ended and this and that. And then somebody said to me, "Remember who you are." And all of a sudden it's like, and it's just like, you know, I've done all these things. I've been on national radio, local radio, my documentary. I had a part in a small film that was shot at the gym with some guy who was from Hollyoaks was there, and I've passed courses. I've done so many things, and sometimes you forget, you know. And it's then sometimes I'll take a step back and I'll think, Jesus Christ, like, you know, but I want more of it, you know, and I want more, and because I used to think the world was such a shit place. And it's very dark and deep and everything else, but it's not. I mean, it can be, but like it's full of amazing things. Like, because I never went nowhere, and I never did anything. I say this in my documentary, and I say this quite a lot. I always say it's like, to me now, the world's like, I call it the sweet shop of life. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but it's like, you know, them old sweet shops you get, and they've got the jars of sweets. You used to have to get a quarter. Can I have a quarter of them, please? Remember that them days? Quarter of aniseed balls, whatever they were, and I look at life like, and I'm like, I want to try that, and then I want to taste that one, and then and sometimes it's really overwhelming because there's so many things to do and see. It's incredible if you've got your eyes open, but when we're in a bad place, your eyes are shut, and you're just stuck in this thing. In this whatever it is that you've got going on in your life, and you can't really see a way out, you know. And the only thing that I did was I refused to give in because I was desperate to see what was on the other side of all this mental torture that I was going through. And I thought, whatever comes my way, I'm never going to give in. And I've cried rivers, mate. I swear to God, I've been in. See, the thing is, when I packed in drinking, because I'd done that all my life, I didn't know who I was. And like I say, I go back to the documentary and I say, who am I? I went on this massive journey of self-discovery because I hadn't got a clue what I liked. Because all my music was like deep music, Pink Floyd, and whoever else. But like, sort of like my dad's sort of era, like, you know, like stoner music. And the books that I read were like football hooligan books and like angry and stuff like that. So I ended up changing everything around me. Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle, Jeff Thompson, you know, and surrounding myself with inspiration, you know, like everything, the music I listen to, the books I read, the films I watch, everything. And then like with the Jeff thing was a really mad, like, a really mad situation because it was brilliant. It was. All my books were, like I say, were full of anger and football violence, and I'm not really into football either. It was just just violence and anger, and I went down to Waterstones one day and I found this book, and it got this bold guy on there with a knuckle duster, and I thought, fucking hell, that looks violent as I'm having that. And I read the book. Never heard of this guy in my life. Look through and you've got the pages with all the other guys that used to train with this guy and that's in the book and everything else. Never heard of one of these people in my whole life. And then the weirdest thing is, they all become my friends in reality. It was mad to think that, like, I've picked this book up and you know when people say, oh, that was meant to be, you can't really get much more truer than that, you know. And it was like, Jeff ended up becoming my mentor. Matty's a very good friend of mine. You John Anderson. I trained with John Anderson for about 3 years. Never missed a session. Got good friends with John. Tony Summers is like everyone's dad.
Amazing, man. He's amazing.
Tony's one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, and he's had such a massive impact in my life. It's incredible. He's been so good to me, and the same as other people like Glenn Smith, Big Paul Hudson, all the lads from the gym, Troy. Everybody from the gym. They've all been really, really kind to me and helped me. I've helped them as well, but they've with their little bit of guidance and knowledge and things, and now I'm helping other people, and it's amazing because not that long ago, I was in a toilet that stunk of piss, shoving heavily cut drugs up my nose and having nosebleeds, and ended up in hospital and on death's door, and the transformation is incredible. But like I always say to everybody else that ever asks me about my story is, I'm no different to anybody else. I don't, just because I do the jumping out of planes thing and this and that, I'm very sort of grounded person. I'm not special at all. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I don't look down my nose at people either that do drugs or that drink a lot or anything like that, because that's wrong, because I was them people, I was that person, and I want people to try and understand that because I'm no different to anybody else, if I can do it, I really honestly believe that anybody else can do it too, whether it's drinking, drugs, sex, gambling, whatever your vice is, or even if it's just mental health. There is help out there, but you've got to go and get it. It ain't going to come to you. It's like you've got to put the work in. Like you always say, do the work. You've got to do the work. Like Matty Evans, as brutal as what Matty Evans can be, he's played a massive part in my life. Matty has. And you can say what you've got. Yeah, I've got this big alcohol problem, or I've got this problem, that problem. And Matty will just say to you, so what are you going to do about it? And it's like, that's just Matty Evans, and it's just, what are you going to do about it then? And that's what it is. No one's coming to save you, unfortunately. You've got to do the work. And that's what I realised is, when I stopped going to the pubs, I realised I was on my own. I hadn't really got that many friends. I still keep in contact with a few of them, and they're still sound and that, but they do what they're doing and I'm doing what I'm doing. But it's like, I realised that I was really on my own here. And if I don't go out and do something about this, nothing's never going to change. And as scared as what you are, as embarrassed as what you are, you've got to scrape yourself off the settee. There's some days I can't be arsed, but I scrape myself off the settee some days, and it's like, get your arse up, go and train, go and do a little bit. Some days when I'm really, really stressed, got a lot on my mind. When I've been battered in jiu-jitsu, I feel amazing, mate. Oh, no. As mad as what that is, I feel so good after somebody's been trying to choke the life out of me. It's unreal.
Yeah, I get it, mate.
It's unreal, but you've got to do the work, because if you don't, unfortunately, the reality of the situation is no one's coming to save you.
What's next for you?
To travel the world.
Yeah. How far away are you from making that happen?
Maybe a year. Maybe a year, maybe less. We've still got to sort all my dad's house out and stuff, because we've got to sell my dad's house and get that all sorted and then that'll give me a little bit of freedom to do what I want to do with, to do a bit of travelling, I think. And I'll have the opportunity. I'm really grateful, because I'll have the opportunity to financially be able to do that. And I'm 48 this year, and I don't think I'm old. I feel really fit. I feel really strong. I feel sharp in my mind. I get down just like anybody else. But that's what I'd like to do is, I will do it. Once I've got something stuck in my mind, I will. But because I never went anywhere and I never did anything. I was just stuck in a pub. I admire. I don't know about you, Alex, but when you speak to somebody that's travelled, I find them so fascinating because they've got so much to say because they've been to so many places and they've seen so many things. I met this woman once. I was going out with some girl and she introduced me to a friend, and she used to go travelling a lot. And she went all around Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, whatever. And I could sit there and listen to her for hours because she was so fascinating. And I've got the chance. I've got no kids. I ain't got a mortgage. I've got the chance to go and travel, and that's what I want to do. And and to be able to do that is quite special. I think it's and to recognise that it's an amazing opportunity to be able to go and see the world. I mean, to be able to sit there and say, from where I've come from, and from the depths of depression and suicide, all that sort of deep dark stuff, to just go from there and to just keep doing this and doing that and just go. And then I've travelled the world. If myself had seen my old self, and my old self had said to my new self, I'm going to pack in drinking, I'd have been like, you got no chance, mate. I was that bad, so but yeah, that's what I want to do. There's so many places that I want to go and see. I went to Australia years ago, but I was a mess then. I've been Thailand, but I was all right then. And I think going on a long haul flight as well makes you realise it's a big world out there too.
Yeah.
And I just want to see it all, Alex. It's like I want to experience everything. So like when I do get like really old, if life plans that way, I can look back and think, do you know what? I've done all right, I have. But along the way, I want to try and help other people as well, because I want people to see or try and understand that I'm no different to anybody else. That you can go out and do what you want to go and do. You've just got to put the work in, and you've got to do your bits of research. You've got to do. You just got to put the work in, because if you don't, it's not going to happen. As simple as that. But I'd love to be able to go and travel. It's always been on my mind, and it haunted my dad. My dad's even said to me one day, "I wish I'd have met your mum later, because I wish I could have travelled." And I was just like, "Yeah, great, cheers." But I get it, because he always had a fascination with India and America, and he always wanted to go and travel, and he travelled around the deep south in America with his mate, and a few times, but he always wanted to travel, and I'll have that opportunity, and if I let that go, it probably won't happen, so yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
So listen, mate, I'm gonna have to wrap this up in a minute. We've been chatting for 1 hour 50, by the way.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's been great, mate. I could speak to you all day, to be
Yeah.
fair. Mate, there's one more question. I love this question. It's one of my favourite questions to ask people. So what do you need to work on now, despite like all the transformation and turnaround you've had? There's always things to work on, right? So what do you need to work on now in order to become a better man?
So we've got 10 minutes. I can be insecure a lot. I need to work on that. I can be insecure. I'm very sensitive. I can take things really personally, and I shouldn't. It's like Glenn's always telling me off. Well, he ain't telling me off. Glenn's just like he's like a dad I never had sort of thing. And he says to me, he says, you take things far too seriously. He says you take things too personally. And he says, you've got to realise that it's not personal, Baz. He says it to me once. It's not personal. You've got to remember, it's not personal. And I keep nodding my head in that lot, but I don't. And it's just like, there's quite a few things. I do get quite insecure. And I don't know whether that's, at the minute, I don't know whether that's because my dad's passed away. And I'm still a bit sensitive because of that, because I actually watched him die. I held his hand while he died, and it's mad because we didn't have the great relationship, but to watch someone die, it was fascinating, to be fair. But
it's funny though, like I say, these insecurities, I worked this out just the other week. I was like, I train like an animal, right? But that's because I'm so insecure. I've managed to learn how to take that and channel it into something good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So for an hour, I give myself permission to be totally insecure, put my headphones on, be nasty in the gym, get down to it. And it's the reason why I maintain a good physique. It's because I'm insecure and I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I care what people think about the way I look.
Yeah.
So it was just a good example of to me, of how I can use that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like throughout your entire story, you've took what could have fucking killed you and you've turned it into the thing that makes your life like so incredible.
Yeah.
And why you can come and share such a great story on the podcast. It's because of all that shit.
Yeah.
It's because you're all or nothing. It's a blessing and a curse that you're all or nothing.
Yeah.
Because you were a great drinker, right?
Yeah.
But now you're great at fucking boxing and photography.
Yeah.
Because you're all or nothing.
Yeah.
So it's blessing curse, and it's like, well, let's use it as blessing.
It's like it's just been a mad journey, but I really feel like it's only just sort of starting. You know, like, because I really want to go on to do more podcasts and helping other people. I'd like to get into schools and things and just helping other people, because I think that's what I'm sort of here for.
Yeah, I have to agree, mate.
To try and help people understand that, like, it doesn't matter who you are. It really doesn't matter who you are. You can be successful at something or some things, and you can win at life. You know, like, the world's not such a deep, dark, horrible place, and I really honestly believe 1,000,000% if I can change my life around, anybody else can, because I'm no different to anybody else. And that's, like, I know I keep saying it, but that's what I want people to really try and get people to realise, that you're not a worthless piece of shit.
I know, mate, and I don't like, that's what I mean about I could talk to you forever. I think the thing that was your blessing was you reached the lowest points.
Yeah.
You sat there covered in blood because you fucking cut yourself 100 times.
Yeah.
Not everyone will reach those depths, but it's because you did that, you changed.
Yeah.
A lot of guys like stay in that middle zone where their life's not good at all, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
So fuck it, I'm going to stay here until the day I die. So it's kind of like another example of, like, that's a good thing that happened to you. Otherwise you wouldn't have moved. Yeah. It was so painful.
I'm just really glad I can talk about it, you know, because I know that my story will help other people, and I really hope that whoever watches this can take something away from it, or, you know, or pass it on to somebody else, and like I say, including the documentary, and, you know, there is help out there, and you don't have to live, you don't have to be where you are, you know, because I honestly thought I was going to be like that forever. And
keep doing it, mate. Keep shouting about your story, man. It's incredible. I'm looking forward. Today's an amazing day for me. I've got to speak to you. The guy that's coming in next, he's spent the last couple of years living in a tent.
Really?
Yeah, he's just gone all like living on land.
That wild camping thing. That's another thing that I want to do. Wild camping in the lakes. You know, you see the Instagram thing where they open the tent door.
It's amazing.
And it's just like, you can see one of the lakes and you got the mountains, and that looks just incredible.
Yeah, that helps transform me a bit, like spending more time in nature.
Yeah, away from your phone.
Getting off the phone is one of the best things. So I'm looking forward to speaking to him, because, like I say, it's not many people you can speak to who live in a tent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, mate, listen, thank you.
No
I could speak to you all day. You're super inspirational. For anyone who's listened to this, I definitely would push them towards Who Am I, the documentary. And like I say, not just for someone who's suffering with a drink problem. I think that jumps out at me. It's anyone that just wants to make their life better and be bigger and braver. I think you are a great example of how you can do that. And seeing the pictures of you with the red corner guys and doing your photography, I'm like, that is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great, mate.
So, mate, well done.
Thank you very much.
You're a legend. I hope you enjoyed, man.
Absolutely loved it, mate.
I hope it's fucking recorded now. I always get you talk about anxiety. Now I get anxiety because I've got to make sure it all came out okay.
Yeah.
But, mate, thank you.
No problem. Wicked.
Mate.